Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Politically Crazy. Now, this time you might see here that I'm missing my co-host. Well, first of all, he's not doing too well. Second off, we have another podcast we want to do that's more generalized and not focused specifically on politics. So he would like to be a part of that. I am very interested in politics, so I'm going to talk more about politics. Lucky you all. Today, I was thinking about going over some of the major headlines that have been happening. I rethought that, and I really want to go in depth and talk about the 2024 election. I know I'm a few months late, right? But I think it's important to go back and reflect on what happened, why it happened, how it happened, and ultimately why I'm a little nervous, actually, for future Republican presidential candidates. So where to begin? This is a very broad topic we're talking about, right? 2024 election. Let's just talk about generally what happened. I mean, what did we see that night? What we saw was Trump win. I don't want to say by a landslide, but won pretty well. He swept all of the swing states, all the supposedly blue wall, right? Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, even other states, Georgia, North Carolina. There was a poll out there, a very outlier poll that showed him losing Iowa. That didn't even come close to happening. So going into the election, people saw there were many paths to victory for Kamala Harris, right? Trump needed a lot of states. Harris didn't need as many states as she did. Or as he did, my bad. So what I mean by that is he could have gotten away with winning Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and then keeping all the other states she won, right? Trump had to win North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. He had to win those states. So already going into the election, it looked pretty bad for Trump, right? There was a lot, the polls were showing them very, very close, but Trump had to win more states. He had to. As the night began, we saw a lot of pretty even news, I would say, for both sides. Both sides were looking optimistic. I would say the left was looking a bit more optimistic. The Harris campaign was looking a bit more optimistic than the Trump campaign. As the night went on, though, it became clear that Trump was going to take the election pretty handedly, too. When you have Trump win Pennsylvania and win Michigan and win Wisconsin and North Carolina and Georgia and all those other states, you start to think about, wow, he really won. And he won the popular vote. I don't think people emphasize this enough. He won the popular vote. That's crazy for a Republican candidate to do. It's been many, many years since one has done that. It's really funny going into this election, the left was saying, oh, well, even if he wins, it's just going to be because of the electoral college. He's not going to win the popular vote. We should change it and have it go by the popular vote. Well, sorry, liberals, I don't know what to tell you. He would have won either way. He won both, which is truly insane. So I have a lot of articles I would like to go over. Articles, some clips, a lot of data here. Today is going to be very data-driven. So I apologize in advance for that. I'll try to keep it simple and to the point. Let me pull up. I'm going to pull up CNN. They're pretty much what happened during the presidential race. I'm going to show you the presidential map, right? So let me share my screen here with you guys. All right. So what are we seeing here? Well, we're seeing Trump 312 to Kamala 226. And what are we seeing in the popular vote? Right here, Trump won by about 2 million. That's not a small number. I mean, percentage-wise, it may be. It's only about 1.5%, but that's a lot of people. So let's look at the states he won. So the states you see here in kind of this red and white are pretty much the swing states, states that people weren't 100% sure where they were going to go, right? So let's go over them all because as you can see, Trump won every single one of them. Nevada, Trump won by about 3%. Crazy. 3% in Nevada. Arizona. That's another big margin there. Georgia. That's a pretty big margin, about 2%. North Carolina, about 3%. Pennsylvania, this was a close one, but still, about 2%. Michigan, very, very close, about 1.5%. Wisconsin, less than 1%, actually. So granted, a lot of these states he just won, right? I mean, below 1%, that's a very, very small margin, right? Same thing with Michigan, pretty small margin. Pennsylvania, he starts to get a bigger margin there. And this is the state everybody thought was going to go for Harris. Georgia, pretty significant. I want to talk about where I thought he really overperformed. Obviously, I think he overperformed in all the swing states because I didn't think he was going to win them all. In fact, in my prediction, I had Harris winning. I'm glad she didn't, let me tell you, but I did have her winning. Florida, remember when Florida used to be a swing state? Actually, it used to be a primarily blue state way back when. Look at that. That's not even close. People kept saying Texas. Some far lefters were saying Texas was going to flip. Yeah, I don't think so. Once again, that's not even close. Let's go up here for a second. Even states where, well, I was surprised, honestly, how close some of these blue states were compared to other elections, at least. Let's talk about Iowa, where there was a poll saying Kamala was going to win. Yeah, you tell me if a 13% lead for Trump is even close to Kamala winning there. Remember when Ohio used to be a swing state? That's no longer true. But what we see here is a total electoral wipeout and popular vote win for Trump. Honestly, it was a crazy night for me. I remember watching it. I wasn't very optimistic, and then I started to get more optimistic as the night went on, and I woke up in the middle of the night, jumped to my phone, checked, and I saw Trump pretty much won. We all thought, I know at least I did, I know a lot of people, other people did, we thought it was going to take forever for the election results to come in, because that's what happened last time, right? We were waiting days and days, which is ridiculous, by the way. That's a whole nother topic to talk about. But we really thought it was going to take longer. So we saw the 2024 results right there. I kind of want to look at the 2020 results as well. Obviously, that was Trump versus Joe Biden, and Sleepy Joe won there. So in 2020, I just want to say that Trump got more electoral votes than Kamala did in 2024. I just want to point that out. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go over this map because I think it's really important to understand the difference between these two elections. All right, here we go. So we're looking at 2020. Remember that. So let's talk about some of these margins. These margins were definitely not the same here. Look how more close that was. Florida here. Trump won 51.2% of the vote. Right, it was considered, if you look there, a battleground state. I'm going to go over to the 2024 election. Trump won 56.1% of the vote. Huge difference there. That is a huge difference. This map is not very user-friendly. I mean, let's get a little crazy here. Let's talk about New York. Biden won by 60.9. Trump had 37.7% of the vote. Let me check 2024 real quick. 2024, Trump had 43.3% of the vote. That's a 10% shift in a very blue state, New York, for Trump. That's crazy. Those are crazy margins. Let's look at some more of the battleground states. How about that? Georgia, 0.3. Biden barely won this state, 0.3%. Trump won it by more than 2% in 2024. North Carolina, Trump did win, but it was close. Obviously, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Trump lost. Arizona, Nevada, Trump lost. Trump lost by 0.4% in Arizona, which I think is crazy. But as we can see here, Biden had 306 electoral votes in 2020. Trump had 312. So very interesting to look at these two elections here and just look at kind of the difference. Now we're gonna get even more crazy. Let's talk about 2016. What happened in 2016? This map is a little less to my liking, but I'm going to show it real quick. I don't want to bore you guys, so I'm going to try and make this a real quick analysis into 2016. So as we all know, Trump, 306 electoral votes, Clinton, 232. Does that sound familiar? It's because it's the exact numbers from 2020, except flip-flopped. Excuse me. So let's talk about some of the battleground states. Trump won, once again, Wisconsin by 0.8, Michigan by 0.2, Pennsylvania by less than 1%. Let's look at Florida. Trump only won with 49%. So as the years have gone by, Florida has become more and more red. He won Georgia, North Carolina by pretty large margins, I may add. Let's talk about Arizona. 4% pretty much for Arizona. New Mexico still went for Clinton in 2016, and yet in 2024, President Trump was able to flip that state. It wasn't even considered a battleground state in 2016. Florida was considered a battleground state in 2016. So it's very interesting to see the differences here between the elections. So I want to talk about specific groups of people, how they voted, right? Because you really need to understand all of this data to get a good idea of why Trump won in 2024. Because if you don't understand the data, you don't know what you're really looking at. So let's talk about this. I'm going to share my screen again. This looks very confusing. In fact, you can compare the two here. But age-wise, obviously most of young voters, so 18 to 29, went for Kamala, right? 30 to 44, more went to Kamala than to Trump. More of the older voting demographic went to Trump. We can go by a lot of things here. Let's talk about education. Now, this is nothing new. Most people with college degrees vote liberal. There's nothing new about that. So 56% with a college degree, 43 without for Kamala. So very interesting there, which it wasn't always like this. Let's talk about women, which I think is really interesting. So Trump won white women. Do you remember, let me stop sharing real quick. Do you remember when the left was saying how all these white suburban women were going to come out and vote Kamala because of issues like abortion and issues like what Trump said, the mean, nasty things Trump said. What happened? What happened to that? More white women voted for Trump than Kamala. I just recently had somebody comment on one of my Facebook posts. I said I hadn't seen people whine this much since 2016. It was hilarious, if I might add. But this left-wing lunatic commented on my post. You could tell how uneducated this person is because they said, maybe I just care about women's rights. Well, are you saying women don't care about women's rights? Because more women voted for Trump than for Kamala. At least more white women. You want to explain that one? Probably not. You probably don't want to try to explain that one. Probably just make yourself look like a fool. So I'm going to pull this back up here, right? Okay. So obviously, women of color are going to go to Kamala, right? That's nothing new. I want to talk about race real quick, though, because I want to talk about Latino voters. Look at that. 43% of Latinos supported Trump compared to 55% for Kamala. For those of you who don't understand, that's a crazy number. That is a crazy, crazy number. Let me check real quick. I'm pretty sure I have the exact statistic to prior elections, but this is not normal. This is a huge win for Trump. Actually, I can check right here. Let's go by 2020. 35% voted for Biden. 35% voted for Trump. My bad. And look at, he almost got 10% more of the vote. 63 supported Biden, only 55 for Kamala last year. That's insane. That's a huge shift. I don't know how people can say Trump is a racist when he got 43% of Latino voters voting for him. Let's talk about African-American voters here. He got 16% in 2024. He only had 8 in 2020. He doubled his voting block with African-Americans in 4 years. That's insane. I mean, really, when you look at that, when we talk about location, obviously nothing new here. Rural voters are always going to be, mostly Republican. Urban voters, mostly liberal. It's suburban that you really got to keep an eye on. So most suburban voters went for Kamala, 52, only 47 for Trump. Let's see what 2020 looks like. So 2020, you see, not much of a difference here. Trump definitely garnered more suburban support last year. So I just think that's really interesting to look at. Let's talk about another thing here. I shouldn't have stopped sharing my screen, but I did. So I'm going to share it one more time for this article because I forgot they had this part. So this is asking, in 2024, right? What issues are you more concerned about now than you were in 2020? Immigration. 20% of voters say immigration is 8 times more important than it was in 2020. And remember, Trump ran on immigration. Abortion, 11% of voters say it's more important in 2020. That would obviously be because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Foreign policy, very small dot. Climate. But look at this. 39% of voters say it's more important in 2024 than it was in 2020. And you see racism they were saying less important than it was in 2020. Same with healthcare. So I think that really gives another reasoning for why Trump won. He was very, very hard on immigration. And as we've seen in the first couple weeks of his administration, he has kept up with that. So another thing I want to bring up, right? I want to talk about RFK. I think that's gets overlooked a lot. For those of you who don't know, RFK Jr. was running as an independent in the 2024 campaign, obviously related to John F. Kennedy. He had been a part of the Democratic Party for years, friends with many Democrats. I mean, he said as much in his Senate confirmation hearing just a couple of days ago. So what happened? So Trump and RFK Jr. had a conversation and came to an agreement. There was no way RFK was ever going to win. None of these third parties will ever win. And I understand that people want to say, well, if there was enough of us who voted for third party, that's never going to happen. America is a two-party system, and that's not changing anytime soon. Unfortunately, I hate the two-party system. I don't think we should have parties at all. I would love candidates to run based on what they believe and not have to cater to what a certain party believes. But I want to talk about how RFK Jr. dropping out and endorsing Trump helped Trump. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think Trump would have easily won without RFK endorsing him. But it is a factor that played into Trump's huge success. So, and you know it was when Democrats were trying to keep RFK Jr. on the ballot in some of these swing states. That's insane. He said, no, I don't want my name on the ballot in these states anymore. And they refused to take it out. Democrats fought for it because they knew if they took RFK Jr.'s name out of the ballots, that it was going to help Trump because RFK endorsed him. Think about that. The left wants to talk about corruption, wants to talk about voter integrity and how, oh, there's nothing wrong with voter integrity. It's fine. It's fine. And then they go and do that shit. Yeah, I don't think so. There's obviously something wrong with that. Anyway, I digress. So I'm going to pull up this map for the 100th time for those of you who can see it. And I want to talk about where RFK was forced to stay in the state. So Wisconsin, he garnered 0.5% of the vote. Same with Michigan. In Wisconsin, that's about 17,000 people. In Michigan, that's about 26. So, and this is when he still was forced to be on the ballot. Because if you look at Pennsylvania, he's not on the ballot anymore. If you look at a lot of these states, he's not on the ballot anymore. But they forced him to keep his name in two very important states, which Trump still won. Michigan and Wisconsin. So, like I just said, he only got 0.5% of the vote. But that was after he told everybody, don't vote for me in those states. They won't let me take my name out. Vote for Trump. So we could say that about maybe another 0.5% of people in those states voted for Trump because RFK Jr. endorsed him, which would put a lot of those margins fairly close. Trump would have still won even without the 0.5%, but it would have put those margins a lot closer. So I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot when people are talking about why Trump won, how Trump won, right? So I think people overlook that a lot. Another thing that people don't overlook that was talked about a lot is the issue of immigration. When you have a administration that lets thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of illegal immigrants come into your country and they do nothing about it. In fact, the person running was put in charge of making sure it didn't happen, and it got significantly worse. Trump saw that opportunity. Trump has always run on immigration. He saw his opportunity, though, in the 2024 election to really hammer down on that because the Biden-Harris administration had done such a terrible job. This gave him a wide opening to take a normal American citizen who's not radicalized and say, hey, do you like tens of thousands of illegal immigrants coming into your country? Probably not, right? And obviously we saw that in the election. He won the popular vote. He won the swing states. Obviously, people connected to that issue. We just looked at the graph there. Immigration was very, very important to a lot of voters, and Trump took advantage of that. Another thing I think Trump took advantage of that I don't think is taught about as much, young voters. Now, obviously more young voters went for Kamala, right? Voters for Kamala. And that will probably never change. Young voters, as somebody who is a young voter, unfortunately, they will probably realistically lean left for the foreseeable future unless Republicans are able to change the culture. And we're doing a very good job at that. Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan podcast, most of you probably know who I'm talking about. He gets millions of views. Very, very, one of the biggest podcasters out there, right? Non-political, by the way. He doesn't have a political podcast. It's just he invites people on and he has a conversation with them. And they can be hours and hours long. So let's talk about that. Trump was on the Joe Rogan podcast for a couple hours. In fact, he ran late to one of his rallies in my state, in Michigan, because of this podcast. I think it helped him big time. It really helped connect Trump to young voters. So young voters who all they hear are people clubbing them over the head with Trump's racist, Trump's sexist, Trump's bad from a lot of the mainstream media and probably people they talk to in their age group, because our age group, my age group, leans liberal. So that's probably what they were hearing. They had no idea. So when they were finally able to hear Trump through their media podcast with Joe Rogan for a couple hours, that's huge. Now, Kamala was offered the same thing. Joe Rogan said, come on, you pick the time, I'll do any time with you. She wouldn't do it. And you know, I know why. Because that word salad of a woman would not be able to handle 15 minutes with Joe Rogan. She wasn't able to do it with anybody else. Even the people who were softballing her questions, people from the mainstream media who were hand-feeding her answers, she still couldn't do it. She could not answer questions. She could not be on stage without a teleprompter. Remember the time the teleprompter stopped at one of her rallies and she just kept repeating the same thing over and over and over again? It's because she is incapable of doing an interview, a long interview. So I think she got scared. She said, no, she came up with all the excuses, whatever. What I thought was really interesting is after that, J.D. Vance went on there. And it connected J.D. Vance to a lot of young voters. I love J.D. Vance. I think J.D. Vance would make a great president. And I'm hoping he runs after Trump's term, because I think he would be amazing. If you've seen him do interviews, if you've seen his debate with Tim Walz, that was embarrassing for Tim Walz, I'll tell you that. He's very smart. He's very quick on the spot. He's very educated. Great person, great politician, political candidate, I think. And I remember everybody was calling him weird. The left was calling J.D. Vance weird, and they couldn't look at their own candidate. Okay, whatever. You picked your poison, and you got exactly what you picked. A terrible presidential candidate who lost by a lot. Once again, I'm getting a bit off track. The point I'm making is Trump was able to connect to young voters in a way he wasn't able to before. Uh, I've always been a Trump supporter, but it's good to see other people my age start to see a different side of Trump that maybe they were able to see before. And then, I think a day before the election, Joe Rogan endorsed him. Big endorsement there. I'm usually not for celebrities endorsing political candidates. I think it's a bit silly. Like when you have Beyonce and Eminem and even on the Republican side, Kid Rock, and, you have those people endorsing political candidates. I think it's a bit silly. But having Joe Rogan endorse Trump, I think, was big, unlike a lot of the other celebrity endorsements, because I think Joe Rogan connects to a lot of young people. And I think a lot of young people respond to what Joe Rogan thinks. So I think that was huge for Trump. And I think it was huge that Kamala didn't do it, because maybe she could have connected to certain voters, but she wouldn't do it. So to have Trump and JD Vance on the Joe Rogan podcast, I think helped immensely. So we're getting down to kind of the nitty gritty here. I think it's really funny. I want to talk about two more things. I want to watch some clips with you guys of liberals melting down that Trump won 2024, because I think that's hilarious, right? I think that's a great way to end off today's podcast. A little bit of shorter podcast today. I had a little less time to prepare for this one. I just got out of work an hour ago. So I'm just kind of hitting the road running here. I had some of the information pulled up that I wanted to talk about, but I'm just kind of going off the cuff here. So I do want to watch some clips, but I want to, before the clips, I want to end off on a bit of a scary note for Republicans. Trump is a different candidate than we've ever seen. Different than Mitt Romney, different than the other Republicans nowadays, like Ron DeSantis and even J.D. Vance and some of the other well-known Republicans. He is different. How is he different? He is a little crazy. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean it in a way of he doesn't give a shit what he says, and he will do whatever needs to be done to get his promises fulfilled. That is why he was elected, and that's why in these first 2 weeks, he has done more than Biden did in 4 years. I would like to see a liberal tell me I'm wrong. I guarantee you they can't. The amount of, and I'm not a fan of executive orders, but he's getting the job done. And Obama and Biden started that. So sorry, liberals, you guys started it. Trump's just carrying on what you guys laid down. Foreign policy. He's done great on foreign policy so far. So what worries me? I'm sure that's what you may or may not be asking yourself. You probably don't care. But I'm going to answer the question anyway. I think it's going to be hard to get another candidate like Trump that garners that much support from people. People are very, very loyal to Trump. People who have never voted before are voting for Trump. Some moderates have become MAGA people. So what's going to happen when Trump is off the ballot? Can another Republican candidate pull the kind of weight he did? I think it's a no. I think the 2028 election will not be a good election for the right, for conservatives. I don't want to say that, but I have to. What I'm hoping happens is J.D. Vance really shows his character with these next 4 years. He's done a great job so far, so that when 2028 comes and hopefully he's running, people can say, that guy right there, he helped Trump. Everything Trump said he was going to do, that man right there helped him do. I want that man to continue what Trump started. So it's kind of a passing down the legacy thing. Other than that, I don't see a way a Republican candidate gets as much support as Trump did, because Trump was an out there candidate, really. I remember when back in 2016, who's going to run against Clinton? Who's going to be the person? People were saying Trump. They were getting laughed at. And now look at, he's been president twice. Biggest political comeback ever. So I did want to talk about my worries there, just real quick. There's a lot of things that Republican candidates could do to fix that issue. I don't think they should focus in follow exactly what Trump did. There's a lot of bad things Trump has done. He gets out there and says dumb shit. Tweets dumb shit. It's dumb. It's stupid. I wish he wouldn't, but he gets results, right? I'm more worried about actions than words. I'm just that kind of person. I think most Americans are, which is why he won. All right, let's get into the fun part. Let's watch liberals' reaction. So mainstream media, some other reactions here. So I'm going to pull this up right now. I'm going to share my screen for the last time tonight. So let's listen to some of this, guys. I'm hoping it's not going to be too loud here.
Democrats need to be mature, and they need to be honest, and they need to say, yes, there's misogyny, but it's not just misogyny from white men. Mm-hmm. It's misogyny from Hispanic men. Right. It's misogyny from black men, things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a black woman as president of the United States.
That's crazy. That is crazy. This clown right here, who used to be a very, very big supporter of Trump, by the way. This clown right here. The reason Kamala Harris lost was because of sexism and racism. And then he goes on and says that Latino men were being sexist and racist. What? Is that how you plan on bettering your campaign for the Democrats? I don't understand what coping, obviously, but this does not help him. Does not help the Democrats. It just proves the point that the right has been making, that they are so focused on race that they cannot see past it. So I thought that was crazy. Crazy take. So let's watch another one here.
We know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that.
What civil rights don't you have now that you did before? This is obviously on The View, a very left-leaning board of members here. Especially her. All these people are insane, actually crazy. But I just thought that one was crazy.
So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
Literally not one county.
Be people tomorrow, we're going to be handing clothes at the dry cleaners to people who don't have papers. There are going to be people who are going to be cleaning your teeth tomorrow who don't have papers. And they're terrified tonight. And so it's easy to blow this off. Oh,
maybe they should have came in the country legally.
Look at the elite. They're going to get their comeuppance. It's not the elite that's going to pay the price. It's people who woke up this morning with a dream and are going to...
It's the people who committed crimes by crossing the border illegally, you dumbass.
I am mystified that despite all of that,
He's mystified, guys.
He's gaining support compared to 2020. And it gets back to something I said earlier at some point, one of the hours ago, that who are we as a country? And we're starting to find out. And from what I'm seeing right now, I'm not sure.
He's pretty much trying to call the country racist, sexist, you name it. But yeah, I thought that would be a great way to kind of end this podcast. Go over some whining liberals, crying about the election, like they did in 2016. Unfortunately, I didn't see the iconic meme of the girl on her knees screaming no. I was really looking forward to that in 2024, but did not see that. Maybe in 2028, I can hope, right? But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I know it was a lot of data. It was a lot of me monologuing. I guess that's what the point of a podcast is, though, when you do it by yourself, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in to Politically Crazy.